Can you explain the problem you were trying to solve?
I think that there's something really important in technology understanding human emotion, and because that is so much of how we perceive and how we interact with the world.
How do you get to where you got that confidence?
Our job is to come into new contexts and come into new environments and try to figure out what's going on and what's going to be shaping things. One story that I can talk about was...
Hey everyone, Chris Jonu, Overnight Success, and I have a superstar guest in Savannah Kunovsky from IDEO. Talk about everything AI and emerging tech and the parallels between kind of entrepreneurship and the need for experiential in entrepreneurship, I should say, and everything in between. I'm sure you'll love the episode. Enjoy. Can you explain the problem you were trying to solve? Right, you said this emotional. It was very like cyborg kind of responses, or like how did it, what was the kind of the premise?
Yeah, what we were trying to do was by taking kind of deep science about how human beings connect with each other and interact with each other, and blending that with some forms of artificial intelligence, creating ways for people to better understand what is happening in the dynamic between them and another person. And I think that this can be, applied to like romantic relationships, obviously, but also in like workplace relationships and workplace dynamics. And I think that there's really something really important in technology understanding human emotion, because that is so much of how we perceive and how we interact with the world. And there are a lot of questions inside of that about the accuracy of that perception and how to make it into something that actually feels like it resonates with the people who are using those experiences.
I think it was more like a human thing, right? It was just that you were trying to get, very senior innovation people that are kind of set in their ways with how to launch products to like think about running more lean and agile, and like that just really doing their head in, right? Like, and plus it's like young people, I guess, as well. Like, and then so it will be a lot of like, no, we already know how to do this, and like, what do you mean we have to talk to the customer, right? Like, and we would just inject all this kind of stuff, and like either they were on board or it was very, very challenging. So, is that part of your fun day to day?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like so much of business is human. And so much of how we make choices inside of organizations is based off of, our past experiences and our visions and stuff like that. And I think that one of the really powerful things that we do at IDEO and bringing into client organizations is just being able to kind of read the room and understand the context and like know how to balance organizational needs and organizational pressures and, championing whoever it is that's kind of bringing us into the organization and helping them make change that's going to resonate with their stakeholders and is going to resonate with, what's happening in the larger ecosystem and in the larger picture of business. And so, figuring out how to just like make sure that people's voices are heard is a huge part of our process. It's not just bring us in and we're going to, design an interface for you, or we're going to take over and run it for you. It's like, let's come in, read the room, figure out, who needs to be elevated and how to do that in a way that's respectful in the context of the business.
Yeah.
And also
what's been done before.
Exactly. Yeah. What's been done before. And the other thing that I love about working at IDEO is I feel like I can genuinely come in and like say the thing that I think needs to be said. And I think a lot of business leaders don't always hear exactly what needs to be said. They hear, what people think is going to sort of just like politically like satisfy the context. And yes, again, we can read the room, but I think that we get to actually say, the things that are going to make change and make change in a positive direction.
So is that data driven? What gives you what's the confidence, or you just like because you've been through this so many times? Like how do you get to where you got that confidence?
Yeah, it's a combination of a bunch of different methods. One of them is like, doing internal interviews and talking to a bunch of people that work across the organization and understanding their perspective and, like you said, understanding what's happened in the past. And then we'll also do both qualitative and quantitative research, really focused on people and human perspectives. So say we are trying to design a new interface or design a new AI product, then we're not just going to start in the backs of our minds and say what do we think would solve this problem?
Yeah.
We will explore what's happening across the industry, read sci-fi books, watch movies, explore kind of edge cases of how people are trying to accomplish a specific task now that the business is kind of orienting towards, and map that all into the context of the business. So these conversations that we have, and then use that to kind of create different visions and take people through an iterative process. IDEO is a global design and innovation firm. We've been around for about 45 years, helped to popularize human-centered design and design thinking, which are basically methods of bringing in human perspective into helping organizations or systems or people figure out what to do, what's next. And through that process that I just talked about.
Yeah. And so to me, what kind of blew my mind around working with corporates and stuff like that, that's just our sound engineer. He's in the background.
Bless.
But is how few of them actually talk to customers. Is that just a common problem with enterprise worldwide? Is that a thing? Or is this my own experience?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's 100% a problem, and also, it's talk to customers, and then it's also how much are you letting what you're hearing actually change and shape your vision versus being really holding on tight to it.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing of, especially when you're working in emerging technology, which is the lab and the part of the IDEO that I run. A lot of the time we are designing products and experiences that nobody has any precedent to understand. So when generative AI came out, we couldn't ask people exactly what they thought of generative AI because they'd never used anything really like it before.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with some of the futuristic hardware that we work on, or the future shapes of different organizations that might have different forms of technology inside of them. So sometimes the human perspective on today is actually kind of limiting. And so we have to use more of those methods of sci-fi and of speculative design and, bringing ideas to life.
Speculative design. That's a nice term.
Yeah. Speculative design is basically the process of, it's kind of what you see in sci-fi. So somebody is imagining a future world and then different scenarios and different technologies inside of those future worlds, and actually using that as part of how we inform what a major corporate strategy might be. One story that I can talk about was interesting, and it was a bunch of founders came to us, and they're all kind of tech execs, and they saw generative AI coming and wanted to figure out how to use it in the context of education and in ed tech. And when generative AI came out, then, and especially as somebody who has a background working in education and working in alternative education systems, we basically heard a collective sigh and groan from English teachers and writing teachers all around the world. And so what we did with this organization was, rather than saying, okay.
But this would have been exciting for you. Yeah.
Sorry?
This would have been exciting for you, though.
Exciting?
Yeah, it would have been an exciting project for you.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, and that's because when these new technologies are coming out, we're really thinking about, okay, how do we make this useful for people, rather than just, kind of leaning into the negative sides of it, which, it's important to ask questions about unintended consequences and about the bad things that might happen too, and we do that in our work. Asking how these tools might make humanity better, or might help people, connect with each other or whatever more.
It seems to be a common theme this week, yeah.
Yeah.
And even with my last guest too, but sorry, I'm screwing up your story.
No.
But yeah, so the client, the founders came to you.
Yeah. So we had done all of this kind of proactive research with Gen Z to explore their perspectives on generative AI. And as somebody who's not Gen Z, but occasionally borrows from their like fashion sense, if you can't tell, my perspectives on technology as a millennial are like, I want technology to make my life so much easier and streamline everything. And kind of what we heard from them was, we want to go on the bad date, and we want to go on the bad vacation, and we want to have these messy experiences that really make us human. And so we had done all of this kind of like early exploratory research. And then when we were working with these founders to build this edtech product, we folded that into the product itself. And rather than creating a tool that just like allows students to generate essays and removes all of the process of, kind of introspection and growth as a writer, we leaned into that, and we leaned into, the more human side of it, so that the process of writing an essay helps you understand yourself more and helps you understand what your intention is as a writer, and how you can grow and where you can develop. And same thing for the kind of teacher side of it. Helps teachers like get better insight into how the students are doing and what it is that they need, especially if you're a teacher that has like 200 essays to grade in a night. A big part of our job, and especially a big part of my job, is to sit on the leading edge as much as possible and to be paying attention to what's happening, and not just to kind of like take in a new tool when it's announced, or understand kind of what's happening like in the roadmaps of these technologies, but to also like use our process of speculative design to be able to have some forethought around like what might be coming. So, we did work like in 2004 where we were predicting technology that ended up launching 10 years later. Nice. And so that type of foresight that we're able to bring through our design process helps us and kind of enables us to see what's coming, I think a lot of the time before it comes out. And obviously there are things that like totally blindside us as well, but our designers, because our job is to come into new contexts and come into new environments and try to figure out what's going on and what's going to be shaping things, we're kind of constantly doing that, and we have this like super open-minded approach to the future of technology and the future of different industries, and also how things like geopolitics and shifts in supply chain or other winds that might be out there might change the shape of business.
Thank you for listening to Overnight Success. We hope you enjoyed hearing from our guests and learning about their inspiring journeys. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and share it with your friends. And remember, with hard work and dedication, anything is possible.